I do think there's a general misconception of flexible working still, though.
Yeah.
I think, especially in bigger businesses, they still see it as a perk for the employee.
Right.
And it's not. It's a two-way thing very much. And in fact, in smaller businesses, it almost goes the other way in that you work flexibly, but you never switch off because you're working at home, you're working on holiday. So there's a balance needed.
Yeah.
But I definitely think the main problem we find in the bigger businesses is that they don't understand that it's not necessarily a perk. It's a different way of working that actually has benefits all round.
Welcome back to the Behind the Screens podcast. This is normally David's bit, so I'm Mark, and David's currently in LA. And today I'm joined by two guests, which I think is the first time we've had two guests.
Great. Nice.
So we have Georgina Bale and Emma Hatto, and they're from Bauer Talent. We were just Bauer Group that has multiple tiers. So it has a talent division where you recruit and place PAs into businesses, a training division, and then a technology division for on-demand PAs, more remote, as I understand it.
Yep, right.
But that's me telling you what I understand of it. Maybe just to begin, I've done a lot of interviewing of HR roles this week, so I'm going to begin with, maybe just tell us a bit more about you and how Bauer Talent came to exist.
Okay, I will start. We were already saying we're going to start talking over each other. So, recruitment was our first business, and we set it up because we were PAs and we absolutely hated recruiters. I can't swear on this, can I?
Oh, you can. Oh,
okay,
totally.
fine.
Yeah.
Fucking hated recruiters. And they are generally... there are some really amazing ones out there now, actually, but for PAs and support staff, the industry was pretty stale and very volume churn. There was no real emphasis given on the importance of the role, and so we decided to set up a recruitment business based on that.
And when was that? What year was that?
5 years ago.
5 years ago,
Yeah,
right?
to
So
the
5
day,
years in.
almost.
Yeah.
Almost to the day.
Yeah, well,
Oh.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, that's cool. And so where did how did that evolve into the other tiers of the business?
So the training side kind of comes quite naturally because we had lots of candidates that kind of needed that extra support. So we were kind of naturally training them anyway. The majority of us are ex-PAs, so we have the ability to do that. And George can talk a bit more about how kind of that business has evolved. But on ibLE, which is the flexible kind of virtual assistant model, it was mainly because we worked with lots of small businesses, lots of startups. They needed access to great support, but they couldn't afford to pay the fees, or our fees, or to pay like a 50k salary. And then we had all these candidates who were coming back from maternity leave, or they just wanted to work more flexibly, and they wanted to be able to have that kind of remote working style. So it just seemed right to marry the two together.
Okay, so it was quite a natural sort of evolution to sort of bring on the different parts of the business.
It was definitely need-based,
Yeah.
and people were coming to us just so frustrated, usually working mothers who just couldn't. Either they wanted to go back to their business, whether it was a hedge fund, private equity, a really high octane business, and the flexible working just wasn't there. Even though loads of businesses now are really good at it, it's still not there and good enough for parents in particular.
Interesting. So were they trying to go for like full-time roles, or basically kind of competing with someone who would effectively
they just wanted to go back to work, having been on paternity or maternity leave, and have a little bit more flexibility in what they did. And they were still getting knocked back, or they still weren't getting quite what they wanted, they still felt they had to work such long hours that they didn't get to see their family too. So we were kind of seeing all of these amazing candidates, but we couldn't help them. So the ibLE, which is the name of our flexible working platform, came from that. Actually, it was Emma's idea, but it came from that.
That's interesting. So I know another company called Obelisk, which has done a similar thing for the legal world. And what I found interesting about Obelisk is exactly the same thing. There's this amazing talent that just now doesn't have the desire, or just is just not practical to kind of, especially in the legal world where hours tend to be quite long. Actually, I've mentioned just generally hours are quite long. Couldn't really commit to basically being there all the time, just because it just wasn't possible, but had this fantastic experience and wanted to get back in. What they did effectively is exactly the same as ibLE. Is they said, well, look, let's just have a platform for that, where that is the point of it. What I've always found interesting is that you choose the role. You either choose for it to be flexible or you choose for it to be full-time in, like as in it happens at the employer end and they decide what route to take. I don't know, does that seem...
Yeah.
Go on.
I think that's what's quite good about ibLE is that you can have, you don't have to have one or the other. You can kind of have both, in that you can have, if you wanted somebody that can come to your office once a week, but the rest of the time you don't want to see them and you want them to be remote, you can have that. And you pay for them hourly, so you pay for the 5 hours they might come to the office, and then you pay for the odd hours that they work away. So you don't have to have them there all the time. You don't have to have them never there. But you can have both as well.
I do think there's a general misconception of flexible working still, though.
Yeah.
I think, especially in bigger businesses, they still see it as a perk for the employee.
Right.
And it's not. It's a two-way thing very much. And in fact, in smaller businesses, it almost goes the other way, in that you work flexibly, but you never switch off because you're working at home, you're working on holiday. So there's a balance needed.
Yeah.
But I definitely think the main problem we find in the bigger businesses is that they don't understand that it's not necessarily a perk, it's a different way of working that actually has benefits all round, and people don't abuse it as much as that is assumed, you know.
Yeah, no, I think I can imagine, say, a scenario where people might actually do work, say, later in the evening because, say, after they've done the family time and things like that, sort of sit down actually could mean that you could get work done effectively waiting for you the next day when you've sent it off at 6 o'clock to get done, and then you come back in the next day or you check the next morning and it's all sorted. So it could actually work very much in your favour.
And ibLE's great. We've gone further than that, actually, and we have clients in San Francisco who send work to London to get done overnight, and it's waiting for them, so that they take advantage of the time zone. And you know, it's thinking about your work and how you get your work done or your business running, and think outside of the box as the method you use and the way that people work.
So sort of optimising it as much as you can.
Yeah, it definitely fosters more loyalty and trust in employees too, because they get to behave like adults and they're not on the clock or watching the time all the time. You know, they're just behaving like adults and doing what they need to do in life.
Are you seeing like a typical profile of, are all companies now kind of being more flexible in terms of how they approach, or is it certain types of companies, is it the smaller ones or the startup ones that are more pushing to it, or are you seeing a general trend of this?
I think in our particular industry, it's definitely still the small businesses. The bigger businesses just can't get away from having somebody physically there.
Right,
And I think that's the problem with the PA role, is that people think that they can't be a PA unless they're actually in the office sat next to somebody. And that's just not true. You know, the majority of the role now isn't running around doing tasks, it's actually doing serious work. And that work doesn't need to, you know, we're all available all 24 hours a day on our mobiles, on our phones, on our laptops, so we don't have to be there to do that. But yeah, I think the smaller businesses and definitely the kind of fast growing businesses are seeing the flexibility more than the bigger businesses.
Because they're sort of building it into their model a bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Actually, that was interesting. I was going to ask about that. The role of the PA has probably changed, like all other roles really, has kind of had a dramatic change with the impact of technology and things like that. What do you think, what is the sort of, how would you write the job spec, I guess, of a modern definition of a PA?
Emma's nodding at me because I spent my whole life preaching about this. Someone called me sanctimonious yesterday when I was preaching about this, which I do have one of those faces.
Podcast, you just got to give it out there. Right? It's opinion. Don't want to sit on the fence.
I agree. I have one of those faces you want to slap. But I get on my high horse about the role of a PA in particular because it has changed so much, and I think businesses aren't fully keeping up with it. And what I mean by that is that technology has taken a big part of the role, and not just that it's taken away parts of the role, but it's there to be harnessed in a way that admin and support haven't yet had the opportunity to do. And when they do, so what I mean by that is, you know, the people are managing the automation of the business and the operational processes of a business and making them more efficient, tweaking them. And that could be, you know, the actual operational infrastructure, but it could also be the way that you work and your personal workflow to make you more efficient. And I think the role is really, you know, the best PAs that I'm seeing and the best and the most high performing businesses are doing that as one of their new kind of core streams of working.
So effectively taking, say, like a role that they would be having to do fairly manually and then innovating on that to say, how can I eliminate this role for my day so that I can go on and do other things?
And I think that, and there's a massive wider debate around education and different forms of intelligence. And I think a lot of admin and support staff seem to fall into the role because they tend to have different types of intelligence than the leaders of a business tend to do, because of the way that our education system's set up. The people who achieve, the more degrees and go through the system in that way and have that particular sort of intelligence, it's traditional for them to end up at the top of the business, which is fine in many ways. But I think the different sorts of intelligence that admin and support staff can have, EQ, the way that they manage people, and definitely creativity and innovation are just things that aren't nurtured in those roles. And as soon as they are, and you open that out, it's profound, the difference it can have on a business.
And is that where the training element comes from then?
Exactly, yeah.
Do you think that there is a hesitancy? Like, I've seen this a lot in America. America has been the most, when we've dealt with, we've just done sales tax in the USA, and the finance team have been through that. And I'm honestly shocked about how administratively paper-based everything still is there. And everything's done on the phone, and then you have to print something off, fill it in. Someone over there will check it. And I have a theory that I think that a lot of the very high employment in America is companies keeping, or governments especially, keeping these admin roles and not doing something which just frankly should just be done online. Do you think there's who is it is it the company? Is it the people that's sort of holding back a bit of this sort of things which just, why is that still a paper form?
It's profound at the lower education level. It's like any kind of big socioeconomic problem, I suppose. And so you could start all the way at the bottom and change the education is done and structured. I mean, it's still basically set up for the Industrial Revolution. It's not set up for the tech age, and that is half the problem. Right. Yeah. That the people who have specific sort of creativity and innovation aren't getting the opportunities that they should get. It's the reason like dance and all the arts are still at the bottom of the curriculum when they shouldn't be. That if you change that, then that would make a difference. I think the kind of the stereotyping of whether you've got a degree or not, and the route that you took to get where you are, right, yeah. And or the suppression of our industry, admin and support, and the way that they're stereotyped as secretaries in 1950 Mad Men sort of way, all keeps it suppressed. And I find that that's where my sanctimonious nature starts to sort of really shine through, is that like I have to spend most of my time training people to re-educate them on that point before we can teach them how to then become take the opportunities that are there for them.
There's so many things.
It's kind of like the business's fault, but also that person's fault, because they're letting themselves be kind of labelled like that. Yeah. And if they don't have that mindset where they can shift that mindset to do better and to be different, then they're always going to be like that, and therefore the industry's never going to change. So we can blame the businesses, but we should blame the individuals too.
Yeah, but then if they don't know that opportunity's there, it's hard for them to take it. So it's a responsibility on both parts to like grasp basically just the opportunity to learn and develop and look deeper into, as an admin, as a PA, as an office manager, receptionist, whatever, what can I do to learn and grow? Yeah. And that doesn't mean moving up through the business necessarily, but it means broadening out your role and your knowledge, and that takes you then in different places that you probably didn't expect to be.
There's so many different questions. I've got so many different questions. This is really interesting, though.
There's 2 XPAs running 3 businesses.
No, but it's really so. I think I completely agree. I totally sympathise. I mean, how, especially at the start of your career, how do you sort of almost take on the machine? I have seen some changes in other parts, as I'm thinking, obviously from our own experience. I've seen a bit of a revolution in how support, as in customer support, is looked at in our industry. Mainly because customers highly valued it. Yep. So if you've got bad customer support, we all know how infuriating that is. On the phone, like bouncing around and not getting the answer right. But with great customer support, you just feel, like that. So it's even that the branding of it has slightly changed. We call it customer success in many ways now. And that has made it much more, suddenly you see this lift of what used to be, we've got to have it, let's just do the cheapest possible, where it's very price driven, whatever kind of thing. And now it's been elevated. I wonder if it needs a similar sort of rebranding and evolution.
I think the whole sort of secretary to EA, which is a long journey, and there's still people out there being called secretaries, I think that that is happening, and the shift in the role has definitely changed. But I still think there's a long way for it to go. I think that people do see the value of having a really good support now, and whether that be somebody running the office really smoothly to being a business assistant, and you can really see the difference between a bad person and a good person. It can change your business life, and it can change the way that your C-suite runs if you have the right person there. So I do think that evolution's in place.
What are the qualities of a brilliant person in this role? Sorry, I think you were about to say something.
No. I was about to say, actually, I think we as a business focus on the preachy side because we're so passionate about it, but actually there are loads of amazing people and businesses out there supporting this and doing all of these things already, and I think there is momentum there, and we end up we go down a bit of a rabbit hole of just being pissed about it all the time, when actually there's loads of people doing loads of stuff, and like just that support and that championship of all the people that are doing the things that we're doing. There are other businesses doing stuff in the way that we're doing it, and they're doing it amazingly well as well, and I think supporting each other and championing that is part of that shift. Yeah. But you were going to ask a different question, sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry, no, it's good. It's really more like, so
what makes it good?
I've just realised that I'm quite decent at recruiting. Well, I'm decent at recruiting roles that I've probably done myself in the past. Yeah. And I'm really bad at recruiting roles I've never done. So I'm recently been doing, kind of finance and HR roles, which is, I just, sometimes I don't know what the right questions to ask. I mean, you can ask the questions, what have you done? Oh, tell me about that. But I find it difficult, especially when people have got experience, to sort of, not to say see he's good and bad. I actually, generally speaking, don't believe anyone's necessarily bad, especially if they've got good experience. It's more how do you figure out what's going to be a good fit for you, or what are the characteristics that you should be looking for?
Trust your recruiter.
Oh right, yeah.
Which I know isn't,
well,
or at
there's
least
a whole different podcast.
Just name the next one. No, go on.
I was going to say, I think you do need to do a bit of due diligence on who your recruiters are and like how much experience they have, and form a relationship and a partnership with them and have them as part of your team. I think that's the biggest thing when Emma works on the recruitment business, I do training, so you would have more thoughts on that, really.
I think I focus more on kind of the softer skills, so not focusing, I just don't look at a CV. Like, I don't care what's on a CV when I'm recruiting for myself or for the team. I care about whether I think they're going to fit into the team and what qualities that they can bring that other people don't. So that kind of diversity piece, where are they from, what do they do, what do they like, what do they do outside of work, what's going to make them different from the person that they're sat next to. And I think within an EA role, that's super important, because you don't want somebody that's going to be exactly like the person that they're supporting, because it just won't work. You need someone that's going to challenge that person. And similarly, in a HR role, you need somebody that's going to be different from the CEO, because you need somebody that's going to have a completely different outlook on the business and on the people. So I think focusing on those softer skills is more important than what their experience is.
We get a lot of businesses who ask for Russell Group educated assistants, which is fine and great. And there are those out there, and they're amazing at their jobs, I'm sure, but the trend we see is that those who are sort of more highly traditionally educated tend to lack the common sense, or as much common sense as the others. And that's not to say all of them are like that. There are some amazing ones, but we find that trend is, if you focus on that one element of education, you're not going to get the right assistant.
We just say that because neither of us have a degree.
That's weird. I can't imagine what going to a university like that would have possibly given you that would have.
And that's the thing I was saying earlier about education. Like, it's not it's not the same sort of intelligence. It's a different sort of, but equally important. Sometimes more important.
It's hiring the same people. Like, why have 10 people that have been to Russell Group educated when you could have somebody from a completely different background doing the job, and they'll have such a different way of thinking about it.
I mean, especially with a role like this, where I imagine, kind of common sense, intuition, and just practical experience is probably,
and grit.
It's just. I mean, our first employee that wasn't a developer was Irina, who's still with us. She's on maternity at the moment, but she's still at the company. And it was basically, I just had loads of admin to do, and I just needed someone to do admin. And it was kind of fortuitous. She literally sent her CV in speculatively, and I went, yes. But actually, it was just then, it was just, all right, here's all of the, processing the invoices and just all that stuff. But she nailed that. She was like, oh, yeah, in my sleep, that's easy. Right.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with the other 4 days of the week? I was like, oh my God. Okay. You're a machine. And then like now, she's a project manager. So the role kind of moved in. She then started working with customers, doing a little bit on the sales side as well.
Yep.
Then it went into, okay, how do we get ourselves more organized? I mean, it just evolved. And her background isn't in this at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's economics, I think, is her degree from memory. But it was just the aptitude for it. And I was just kind of, okay, you can do that?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, can you help with that? And especially as we changed, she adapted very well to changing with us.
We're definitely not devaluing degrees. Like that, they are super important in many ways, and they form part of who you are and your experience. It's just that they're not the be all and end all of your decision or our decision on who's good, especially not in our industry. And I think our point is that our industry is more set up to be successful for people who aren't necessarily going down that traditional path.
And also they don't have to be a PA forever. Like you can interview people and they'll say, I want to be a career PA. Great, that's good, or EA, whatever. But you don't have to do that forever. There's so many avenues you can go down, like you've shown. Especially down, I think the client route is a great way to go down if you've been an EA and you're good at it, because you're watching what your boss is doing or your team are doing, and so you learn really quickly.
And you're normally good with people.
Yeah.
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 You literally see how the business operates, right from the very inside.
And you pretty much, if you're at the top, you know all the details of what's going on. So you know, like the good and the bad, or the mergers, or the all those things. And so you can learn so much from that and take that somewhere else, or do your own thing. So it is a really great career to start with.
So going more into just your business, you've bootstrapped the business. Have you ever taken investment in it? I don't think so.
No, except blood and tears.
The investment
swearing.
of your soul.
Yeah.
Just talk me through that journey, because I've done both. I've got strong opinions on both about how you do it.
We ask lots of people whether we should get investment or whether we should continue bootstrapping, and everyone has wildly different opinions on it. It depends what day of the week you catch me on as to whether I'm like good on one or the other. But we've always, I think to start with, I think it was probably more of a control issue. You wanted to retain control, and we had very clear ideas and visions of where we wanted the businesses to go and how we wanted them to grow, and we still do. So wrestling that away from us is probably a hard thing. But at the same time, actually investment for me would always be about intellectual investment and getting again, it's about this diversity of thought, isn't it? If we find this big gap in the business and we think actually an investor is the person, or a smart investor is the person to fill that, then that would be my motivation for doing it. I don't know about you.
And we touch wood, we haven't had any major issues where we've needed to go out and find funding, so we've never had to panic fund the business, and I think we would want to be very strategic about it. And we've now got 3 different business streams within Bauer Group, and so from an investor's point of view, you're probably looking at which one we'd be focusing on. So we're now at a point where with the business where we've built it to a great place where there's teams surrounding all parts of the business, so they could be split away from each other. So that's not to say that it won't happen in the future, but we've really enjoyed the ride without having anybody else involved.
I agree. I think doing it from a place of not desperation or panic is probably our only rule. Other than that, we're open-minded.
No, I can definitely say from experience, having to go and raise money because you don't have any is it's pretty horrible. The challenge I always found, because we bootstrapped for most of our career, and then we took investment with ScreenCloud, was that we were effectively, and I imagine ibLE's the same. It takes time for that. Placing a top tier candidate is going to give you a decent recruitment fee, right? And it could theoretically be done in sort of 1 to 2, 3 months sort of turnaround, roughly, I guess. Yeah. Whereas building up, the smaller amount of revenue that would come from the platform takes a lot longer, and usually the service is where the money comes from to support the tech.
Yeah.
There can be tension around that. I've literally spent last 10 years having that tension. So that's always been my thinking around that, is that to make the tech side of it really fly, it sometimes does need that boost. That said, I'm seeing more and more companies that haven't done it that way.
We're lucky that ibLE has been funded by Bauer talent.
Yeah.
So the recruitment business has always been very profitable
so
and done well.
Investor.
Yes. So it's been lucky that we've been able to go out and spend the money on the tech to make it work. And so we haven't needed that. And the tech's in a really good place now. We've just been through a big sprint with it. So
shout out Seba.
yeah, shout out Seba. Thanks.
I think he listens.
Finding a good developer is literally the hardest part of that.
See, that's the bit I would be like, oh, that's okay. You see what I mean? About like when you know what you're recruiting for, because I used to do it.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're people, so finding a developer that understands us is difficult because
or vice versa.
I mean, Seba's been great, but it's meant that that business has been able to get to a certain point now where we can let it run and we can build our customer base and we can do marketing around it. So we don't really need them extra cash to get it there.
That's cool. And internally, I think what happened to us was there was a bit of resentment built up between services and the sort of fun, cool product because the services is hard work, right? Yeah. I mean, can go wrong. Clients can be very demanding, very challenging, and sometimes kind of working on the cool thing is like, oh, this is a bit easier. You know, we definitely saw that inside our company, but I think that probably happened because it took too bloody long for this bit to really take on. Have you had any of that problem? Or?
I think we have that on where we're smaller than you, so a smaller level. I think I could definitely see that would be a problem if we had even more people than we do. I think because Emma is the CEO, she runs the whole recruitment business, and the recruitment business funds or has funded so far or been the investor in the other businesses. So that's hard when, you know, those other businesses aren't at the point you want them to be at. And so there's been like dips and peaks and troughs of, you know, that business kind of leeching off recruitment and then catching up, and then you just make other decisions around it. So I don't
think the team mind that though. I think the team probably don't see it as we see it, and I think they quite enjoy that we've got this other cool product and this tech platform, and also it means that we can cross sell. So when they're talking to clients about trying to hire a 60k PA and they just can't afford that, they can talk about ibLE. So we're kind of a one-stop shop for all of our clients.
One of our problems was our team could literally work on both. It was developers either for clients or developers on the platform. And that's where I think it went wrong. Because it's way more fun to do that rather than have that horrific deadline and stuff like that.
Definitely.
So I think that's where a lot of our problems came from.
I think it's amazing that Emma and I haven't fallen out more than we
No, I mean, I was going to ask about that next because like that whole like running one business, funding the other, trying to get the other one there. I mean, that's basically David and me. But, you know, for the last. You know, he talks very passionately about how horrible it was. He felt kind of almost holding the baby that was actually making the money for us, whilst me and Luke were over here trying to make this thing work. I mean, I tell an equally horrible story about how hard that was, but we've always talked across purposes on that, and I do empathise with. You know, I saw, you know, he was jumping from meeting to meeting, and he didn't have me. Like he'd always had me to balance that out, and suddenly I just buggered off. Like, but then likewise, I was like, David, I'm on my own trying to do this thing, and these tiny amounts of money. I desperately want it to work, but the time is ticking down. It's really hard.
Yeah, it is hard, and it's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, this could turn into a therapy session. So
no, go for it.
But
we got the Kleenex.
We've kind of been on, as founders, we've been on a journey like way before we started Bauer, in that. We worked together as PAs for a business, and if it wasn't for George, my career would not have got to where it got to, because she helped me develop that and push people to put me in positions I probably wouldn't have got to without her being there. So I have a lot to. I guess when we started the business, I'm going to get emotional now. When we started the business, it was always something that I wanted to do with George, and then we went like completely different ways in our lives. In that George had 2 children, I didn't have any children. I was probably enjoying single London life. And so as friends, we probably went in different directions, but we always had the business, and it was always something that we were passionate about doing. And I think that's what's kept us together, like pretty much through the whole thing. Like we've had ups and downs in you know, one of us hasn't been around or whatever, but it's never caused any kind of issues day to day with the way the business is.
And I think there's that, it's a fundamental, I mean, you get a little bit kind of like female power on it, but it's what it comes down to is women supporting other women and not undermining them and not feeling threatened and not, and having no ego and having some respect in the way that you and David have of how hard it is for the other person, even when you feel you've got your own problems, and having respect for their issues as well as your own, and remembering that it's all one pot and all one baby.
Yeah, you're trying to get
and the
the
baby's got to live, and you want to nurture it and grow it, and it's going to be hard on one. It's very much like parents, like it's harder on the mother sometimes, it's much harder on the father sometimes, and it goes and ebbs and flows, and you have to have that appreciation for that. It's never equal. There's always going to be an imbalance, and you have to kind of accept that and have respect for the other person. And if you're going at them all the time, or you lose that, it doesn't mean you can't have a bad day, but I mean, I am blind all the time. You should see our Slack.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah. Screenshot.
Yeah, I mean,
You thought away was bad.
Yeah, so bad. I think I once did a search on a particular swear word in our Slack messaging to see how often we said it. I'm not going to say what word it is. And it was like something. It was in October, and it was like 257 times that year. And that was just a one-word message between us.
That's one per working day.
Yeah.
That's each other. It was about other people.
Sometimes might have been. I'm not sure.
It's interesting. We're talking about due diligence on things like recruiters and stuff like that, but due diligence, and that's the wrong term, because that's not. I would never choose a founder with a due diligence process, but the founder fallout is the number one thing reason things go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
I honestly think Emma's the only. I mean, our relationship is the only reason our business has got to where it's got to. And if we're lucky enough for the business to fly even further, then that will be the number one reason it has.
Yeah, it's like you almost need to stress test it before, but I guess you would have by working together and seeing yourself in certain scenarios.
I always say that I think I walked into this business completely blind into what I was walking into, other than I thought it was a great idea. It took a bit of persuading. I wasn't really sure. And then when I did it, I thought, well, a minute now, so I've got to make it work, and I'm never going to not let it work. And if it really doesn't work, look, we've got EA careers that we can go back to Beam. But I think that's... the stress test, I'm not sure it was there, but it's definitely...
I don't think you can you can't prepare.
No.
Do you feel prepared for it?
Do you still?
No, God, no. I was just kind of like laughing away, because like literally that's how Cogent started, because I had a bit of a toxic boss and I just quit one day. It wasn't even planned. I was like, enough of this, quit. And then it was still a bit early we didn't have things like Glassdoor or anything like that, and I was just really worried about going into another company where it was going to be the same thing. And my dad had really pushed into me. He listens, so he's going to be like, probably feel guilty, but it was good advice. But he'd always said, wherever you go, you stick 2 years.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, I can't do another 2 years of this. And it was just impossible to know walking in whether it. So I just went, well, I'm just going to do it on my own then.
Yeah.
And that was the strategy.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But would you do it again?
Oh, the same way?
Would you do any of it again?
Oh, yeah. I think
Would
I'd have
you?
to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean.
Some days I'm like, absolutely not, would I do it again? And then other days, I would do it 10 times.
I would 100% do it again day.
Would you?
Yeah.
I think it's a hard question.
So much.
I wouldn't do it the same way, that's for sure.
I don't think anyone would.
I would do it, I'd have much more of a bit more of a plan. And
but you're a sort of investor gold dust now, because you've done it a couple of times in different ways. So that, I mean, we almost like rolled the dice, and so far of succeeding in the first roll, but that's like, we're on our first go round the merry-go-round. You're on your like third or fourth, aren't you?
Yeah, although I haven't had a big exit. So then you could be going, well, very good at starting, not so good at building something really big. So it's certainly getting ScreenCloud up to the level of the previous businesses was rapid. I could do that like in 1 year, what would have taken probably 3 before. Yeah. Just going, okay, because we already knew the people, kind of have always had a bit of a team that would come and work. So the first bit of recruitment, dead simple. Even, well, I wouldn't say raising money was easy, but there were people who kind of believed in us.
The formula, yeah.
And but then I am conscious that, is it just he's good at that bit, but not very good at that next bit. So I guess there's always a challenge. Whereas you've got no fail.
People are good at different things. Like you need people in your team, you probably need a PA.
Yeah.
I was only thinking about that.
How have we not sold Mark a PA?
Yeah, I know.
I'm sure I've tried to on numerous occasions.
I think, I mean, I suppose I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that role would be for me.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, and that's the beauty of the role, is that it's so versatile, and it's not what it used to be. But yeah, we're going off subject, but I think it is that I think everyone's good at everything, aren't they? So you can't be good at
God,
can't be good at all things.
Becoming more and more conscious of what I'm bad at.
Yeah, but you're clearly surrounded by amazing people as well, like we are, and honestly, those, we talk about each other, but our team, your team,
absolutely,
but they're incredible people, and we've got that kind of slightly kind of sanctimonious attitude around hiring people who are better than us. But it's true. Yeah. They are better than us, at least in important ways. We might be better at some things than them, but they're certainly better at some other things. And then the balance of the business works. So, you've done the same. Surround yourself with those people, and then you've got it. Yeah,
increasingly trying to do it more and more. It's funny that I was sort of commenting the other day, was there is this flip, and I don't really know if it's a year or if it's even a month or something, where it goes from being effectively all about you and your grit and just getting on with it and doing the best you can do, improvising basically, and then that bit where it's okay, stop that's not healthy anymore, it's actually now about bringing those people in. What sort of number of team do you think it is, or what stage of a company do you think it is?
God.
I think that is such a hard question. So we're at 10 at the moment, 10 full-time, and
then 4 or 5
part-time freelance people. I think it's definitely we're definitely not doing the everything anymore. But we've got the team and sort of the people that are coming up into management positions that are taking over a lot of that stuff. But then it's them delegating to their team as well. So I think it's probably another 5 to 10 people before that starts to happen.
I spoke to a couple of sort of bigger business founders than us in recruitment, actually, although we're not just recruitment, but they said that 15 is the number that killed them after 15, or it was 15 or 18 is the number that after that point they were like, this is changed, and now it's really hard to make the better judgment calls, and you don't have as much control, and we're coming up for that 15 number now, so I am really conscious of that.
Yeah, we never made it past 30 in the agency side, and we always bubbled around that. And I think it was because probably at around 15, we didn't start to put the structure in place to break. Yeah. So you can just layer on more people. I mean, that's fine, especially if you're very resource heavy like we were, for projects and stuff. But we couldn't break beyond that because we were just so flat at that point.
Yeah. And then everyone just relies on you to make the decisions and to know what their week looks like. And you just can't have that. Otherwise, you just don't get to do any of the
after a while, the brand just becomes synonymous with the founders, and then and to a degree, that's quite reassuring for the founder because you think, I'm needed, I'm special.
I'd be happy
for
the business.
It's a bit of a key man risk there, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean,
get run over by a bus and that's the end. Whereas I realised to build a business that doesn't need me or Emma. Yeah.
What is interesting is having done some interviews this week of quite senior positions, the number one reason I'm seeing for really good people leaving companies that they've been very successful at and should, in theory, I would say stay and progress, is founders not letting go enough and just saying, so they've done it, they've got everything operationally very strong, they've taken it up to a point where it's all working really well, but they can't break through, the leadership is still controlling everything.
See, for me, that's where if I felt that was what we were doing, that's when I'd get investment to kind of like get that person who'd been there and done that before, and then kind of break that cycle, those habits, and just like blow it apart a little bit in a good way. Or I don't know whether investment would be the right thing, or get someone in that would do that. It's seeing through your own ego to be able to make that call, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think I feel like I'm self-aware, but I've definitely still got an ego, so.
I don't know,
when that is the right moment.
I don't think we should be too. I mean, you have to have a bit of ego to do this in the first place. Like, you know.
But also, wouldn't David come and slap you if you felt that your ego was getting out of control? And Emma would do that to each other.
It's about the team slapping you, isn't it?
I
hope that the team would slap me if I was being.
Well, a couple of them definitely would.
Actually, that is a really good point.
I don't think they would, and that's the problem. Is I just say to them, I want the feedback, tell me, and I just don't think they would give me the feedback. They're probably going to listen to this and tell me otherwise.
Yeah, it's interesting because actually someone actually said that to me the other day, because I've always thought that was like, well, I've got Luke and David to kind of keep me in check if I kind of go wildly off course, and I believe that's true. But then someone also said you would never really tell them, like, you're like brothers, right? So you're not going to you haven't got objectivity from them.
Yeah.
You know their like you're so close.
Yeah.
It's actually, you can't see the bits that they need to work on that aren't necessarily horrible. Like, we always, I suppose sometimes when we think about these things, we will go towards the really negative stuff. It's almost, it needs the external, like the team.
I have to say, and blowing our own trumpet, because we make a hell of a lot of mistakes. But I think two of the things that we've got absolutely right is, firstly, our relationship and the way that we manage that. Secondly, I mean, the luck of having a co-founder in the first place is massive, because it's hard to find one once you're looking for one, and it's easier just to sort of land with the right person. But the second thing is that we seek external advice all the time, and we seek bad external advice and good external advice, but a lot.
How do you seek bad?
Well, what I mean is,
like
sorry.
Prick. Oh, I know what they have to say.
There's plenty of that. I mean bad feedback. I mean, like, critical feedback. So we go to people who we know will pull us apart on purpose and make us feel uncomfortable on purpose. And you sort of have to sit there and listen to someone telling you how awful your business is and the way it's not working. And we actually go and look for that, because I think I think that helps us to, and we give it back to each other and we say, I met this person, this is what they said, and the other one's like, fuck's sake, like, that is not what we're doing, that's not what we're, but it is important.
It's like, they're wrong.
Yeah. And sometimes they are wrong, and sometimes they're absolutely spot on, and it's helpful because it gives you a bit of a slap in the face, like a literal slap in the face in some cases, and then you're it helps you to assess and make small improvements, or land where you actually thought was right, and that's their opinion and you disagree with it and you're going in that direction. So I think that we've done that really well.
That's really good.
Hopefully not got too inward looking and up our own arses.
We absolutely didn't do that. That's
really?
Definitely, we sort of
you're so open-minded. You're always like, you've got no ego whatsoever.
I don't know. It's just the public persona. I'm just thinking in the agency days, we just did so much wrong structurally, just kind of, we were too busy doing it and not enough time thinking about it. And I think there was a lot of fear as well, from memory. We really got a lot into having money in the bank, but like more money than we needed for the business of that size made us feel very, very safe. And I wish we'd gone back and deployed it better and taken more gambles, invested more in people.
Oh, it's so easy to say no.
I know.
Yeah, honestly. It's not so easy when you're living on beans. And
no, exactly.
You've suddenly got all this salary cost. You're like, all these people's lives in the,
It made us.
If you cock up that week, then you're not sleeping.
Yeah, that was the real reason we kept it, but I don't think it helped the business ultimately. But I also didn't have the confidence I have now. I didn't have the experience of it. So I mean,
you kind of have to fail to succeed.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the point of the podcast to a degree. It's like, here's all the things we did badly wrong. But so, you probably do the same, because, no one really wants their mind changed, but have a listen and see what you think. Look, thank you so much for coming in. That's actually the first time we've done. I think we did well.
Good, I feel ganged up on.
No, not at all. No. I've learned a lot. And actually, I'm kind of, let's talk about PAs.
Great, perfect. All right.
All right. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye, YouTube viewers.